I think that the Democrats' biggest messaging success, despite the ridiculousness of the premise, is that the entire rural working class, which is majority white working class people, voted for Donald Trump because they're racist, not because of economic opportunity or whatever financial benefits they thought they would see from voting for him. I'm not even really here to talk about like the success of that, like if people really did feel a financial benefit. I'm just saying the reason they voted for Donald Trump is not because they hate Black people, not because they hate Mexicans, not because they're bigots. I think that may be true for a small percentage of people, just like in general, I think a small percentage of Americans are racist. I don't think it's by and large or generally a racist country made up of racist people. I just think that the Democrats successfully use that messaging to alienate a lot of Trump supporters and to make people think that they were being racist, or to make people on the left hate and alienate their Trump supporter neighbors because they assume that they're hateful bigots. And I really reject that premise.
So underlying that seems to be that, you know, people have been told that the only reason their political opponents won is because the base of their political opponents are morally reprehensible. That there's something they're sort of lacking morally, and that's the explanation for why your political opponent had a victory.
Yes, I mean, you remember in 2016, people were talking about, oh, white supremacy won today. White supremacy won the presidency, or we're the America, like the white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan voting Donald Trump in, and that's really just not the case.
Jason, do you think that's fair? Did you think that that had been a dominant message about Trump's victory?
I think that people were reacting to many of the things that were said and done in Donald Trump's name, and said by Donald Trump himself, Donald Trump's decades-long record. I think people, I think understandably had some fears about it. And I think, you know, it's a little bit of gaslighting by many people when they say, oh, there's not a lot of racism, that's not a whole lot, that's not something that happens often. I think that many Americans have experienced it, and they have their own opinions about, you know, what happens, you know, with their neighbors. Now, I do think that it is, I would disagree that Democrats have had any messaging victories. I think Democrats' messaging is absolutely awful. I think that they have lost the, you know, the messaging battle in many cases. But when you say you want a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the country, when you call things the Kung flu, I think it kind of, you know, adds to this idea that there is hostility to people of color. And when it's, you know, when some of the rhetoric around immigrants, I think that, you know, many people had their fears about Donald Trump and his support. That would usually, you know, and if someone did not have some issues with race, that would, you know, that kind of talk would be disqualifying, you know, but apparently it wasn't for a lot of people. And I think that worried a lot of people on the left, and it made them think, who would support someone who would say these things, especially if they would say them aloud, and not, you know, apologize, not atone, not, you know, try to chart a path forward. They stood by it. And, you know, I think a lot of people were rightfully afraid of that.
So first, to address the first thing you said, I'm not one of those people that tries to gaslight people into saying that racism doesn't exist in America or that we don't have a racist history.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about you specifically.
No, I know. I'm just saying to clarify, I'm not one of those people that holds that opinion. In fact, I do a lot of work with Republicans and people on the right to educate them on how racism still affects people in this country today, particularly Black people. I don't really ascribe to the whole people of color thing. I'm not an intersectional person. I don't view people as white or others or white and colored really in that sense. I view, I do a lot of work educating people on American descendants of slavery, which are Black people, and that's basically what I do. But to address the other things, I mean, Muslim is not a race. Immigrant is not a race. There was never a time in Trump's presidency where Muslims were banned coming to the United States. The countries with the top Muslim populations were never banned from coming to the United States. That was just not something that happened. The Kung Flu thing, I get that it's a little off color. I think that a lot of people, whether people want to believe it or not, make jokes that are not politically correct, but they don't hold hatred or vitriol or bigotry for any other type of race in their heart. Should the president of the United States be saying that? Probably not. It's funny, but I probably wouldn't say it if I was president. I just don't think that means he was a racist. And I think that if looking at rhetoric compared to Donald Trump's actual track record, especially when you compare it to Joe Biden's and the current administration's actual track record in terms of how their policies have affected Black people and how their actions have affected Black people, I think we're looking at two very different scenarios. And I think one of these people is racist, but I don't think it's Trump.